In today's world, staying focused is harder than it has ever been. We live in an age of constant notifications, endless scrolling, and the illusion that multitasking makes us more productive. But here's the truth. Focus is not about doing more. It's about doing what truly matters with intention and clarity. If we want to succeed, if we want to build meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and meaningful lives, we must learn the discipline of focus. So let's explore 6 powerful strategies to stay focused in a world full of distractions. The first strategy is to start with clarity of purpose. Focus is not about willpower, it's about direction. When we don't know what matters most, everything feels urgent and we waste energy trying to do it all. But when we're clear on our goals, distractions lose their power. Clarity acts like a compass. It doesn't remove the storm, but it gives us the direction to navigate through it. The second strategy is to set boundaries with technology. Our devices are designed to steal our attention. Every ping, buzz, and pop-up is a reminder of something else we could be doing. But the truth is, not every notification deserves your response. Learn to take control of your tools instead of letting them control you. Turn off non-essential alerts. Schedule focus time away from screens, and remember, technology should serve you, not the other way around. The third strategy is to design an environment that supports focus. Distractions don't just live in our phones, they live in our surroundings. A cluttered desk, a noisy room, or an environment filled with temptations makes it harder to stay on task. But when we create spaces that encourage concentration, whether it's a quiet corner, a tidy workspace, or even a calming playlist, we give our minds the freedom to do deep, meaningful work. The fourth strategy is to embrace the power of single tasking. We've been sold the myth of multitasking, but in reality, the brain cannot give full attention to 2 complex tasks at once. The result, lower quality work, more stress, and less satisfaction. Instead, commit fully to one task at a time. When you give something your undivided attention, not only do you finish faster, but you also feel more fulfilled in the process. The fifth strategy is to build rituals that protect your focus. Habits and routines are the invisible structures that guard our attention. Think of athletes who warm up before a game or musicians who practice scales before a concert. In the same way, you can create daily rituals like starting the day with journaling, blocking specific hours for deep work, or taking regular breaks to train your brain to enter a focused state more easily. And finally, the sixth strategy is to practice mindful awareness. Focus isn't just about saying no to distractions. It's also about saying yes to the present moment. When your mind wanders, bring it back without judgment to the task in front of you. Like training a muscle, the more often you catch yourself drifting and redirect your attention, the stronger your focus becomes. Mindfulness transforms focus from a fight into a practice. The truth is, distractions will never disappear. The world will only get louder, faster, and more demanding. But staying focused is a choice, a daily practice of protecting what matters most. When you combine clarity of purpose, healthy boundaries, supportive environments, single tasking, powerful rituals, and mindful awareness, you don't just get more done, you create work and a life that truly matter. 5 keynotes of the speech: focus begins with clarity of purpose, because without knowing what matters, everything feels like a distraction. Setting boundaries with technology ensures you control your devices instead of being controlled by them. A well-designed environment strengthens concentration and minimizes external distractions. Single tasking outperforms multitasking by increasing quality, efficiency, and fulfillment. Rituals and mindfulness together train the mind to stay present and protect focus consistently. Focus begins with clarity of purpose, because when we lack a clear sense of direction, our minds become vulnerable to every distraction that comes our way. Imagine starting a journey without knowing the destination. You might drive for hours, follow road signs, and even move quickly, but none of it guarantees that you are heading where you truly want to go. This is how most people live when they lack clarity. They mistake activity for progress, believing that the busier they are, the closer they are to success. But business is not the same as productivity, and true focus requires a deeper understanding of what matters most. Clarity of purpose creates an inner compass that guides decisions, actions, and attention, allowing us to filter out the noise and concentrate on the things that move us closer to our desired outcome. When you know your purpose, distractions lose their power. Think about times when you were completely absorbed in something meaningful to you, whether it was a project, a conversation, or even a hobby. In those moments, you weren't constantly checking your phone or thinking about what else you could be doing. You were fully engaged because what you were doing mattered. This is the essence of clarity. It turns focus from something you must force into something that comes naturally. Without it, every email feels urgent, every task feels important, and you spend your days reacting instead of creating. With clarity, you become proactive, intentional, and deliberate in the way you use your time and energy. Clarity of purpose is not just about setting goals, though goals play an important part. It goes deeper, asking why those goals matter in the first place. A person can decide to make more money, but without clarity, that pursuit may feel empty and directionless. On the other hand, someone who knows they want to build financial freedom to provide security for their family or to create opportunities for others will approach the same goal with greater focus and resilience. Purpose brings meaning to the tasks that might otherwise feel mundane. It transforms effort into investment, sacrifice into commitment, and progress into fulfillment. To gain this kind of clarity, we must be willing to pause and reflect. In the rush of daily life, it is easy to move from one demand to the next without ever questioning why we are doing what we are doing. Reflection allows us to step back and examine the bigger picture. What truly matters to me? What do I want to achieve, not just in the short term, but in the long run? What values do I want my work and life to reflect? These are not quick questions, but asking them brings insight that can shape every decision we make. When we know the answers, we begin to filter our commitments more wisely. We say yes to the things aligned with our purpose and no to the things that only drain our time and energy. One of the greatest benefits of clarity is that it creates a sense of stability in a chaotic world. Distractions are everywhere, from social media and endless notifications to external pressures and shifting priorities. Without clarity, it is easy to get pulled in 100 different directions. With clarity, you create a strong anchor. Even when circumstances change, even when the world feels noisy, your anchor holds you steady. It does not mean you ignore everything else, but it means you have the strength to focus on what truly counts because you know where you are going. This sense of stability not only helps you stay focused, but also gives you peace of mind because you no longer feel the need to chase every opportunity or please every demand. Clarity also enhances motivation. Many people struggle with focus not because they lack discipline, but because they lack a compelling reason to stay disciplined. If you do not know why you are working on something, it is easy to give up when distractions appear or challenges arise. But when you are clear about the purpose behind your work, even the hardest tasks become manageable. Think about students who study late into the night, entrepreneurs who put in years of effort before seeing results, or athletes who train tirelessly every day. Their ability to stay focused is not about superhuman discipline. It is about having a clear reason, a vision. That fuels their commitment. Purpose makes the struggle meaningful, and that meaning sharpens focus. Another important element of clarity is that it simplifies decision-making. Every day we are faced with choices about where to put our time and energy. Without clarity, decision-making can be overwhelming, and we often end up spreading ourselves too thin. But when we have a clear sense of purpose, the process becomes easier. If an opportunity aligns with our purpose, we pursue it. If it doesn't, we let it go without guilt. This doesn't just save time, it protects focus. It prevents us from getting stuck in distractions disguised as opportunities. By removing unnecessary choices, clarity frees up mental space and energy for the things that truly matter. In essence, clarity of purpose is not a luxury. It is a necessity for focus in today's world. It is what allows us to stand firm in the middle of distractions, to resist the urge to follow every impulse, and to devote ourselves to what brings meaning and fulfillment. It is not about being perfect or never getting distracted. It is about knowing what deserves your attention and having the discipline to keep returning to it. Clarity is the light that cuts through the noise, guiding us to stay focused on the path that matters most. Setting boundaries with technology is one of the most powerful ways to reclaim focus in a world that thrives on stealing our attention. Technology itself is not the enemy. It is an incredible tool that has transformed how we work, connect, and live. But the way it is designed often works against our ability to concentrate. Our devices are built to grab our attention, and the endless stream of notifications, messages, and updates creates an environment of constant distraction. Without boundaries, technology begins to control us rather than serve us, and we end up living reactively, pulled in every direction by every vibration, alert, and digital temptation. Staying focused requires us to intentionally put limits around our use of technology so that we remain in charge of our attention, not the algorithms, not the apps, and not the devices in our hands. The challenge with technology is that it feels urgent. Every ping from a message, every like on a post, and every breaking news alert makes us believe something needs our immediate attention. Yet, most of these interruptions are neither urgent nor important. They fragment our concentration and train our minds to expect constant stimulation, making it harder to stay with a single task for long. When we check our phones dozens of times an hour or constantly switch between tabs, we are conditioning our brains to live in a state of distraction. Focus, on the other hand, requires us to break that cycle by creating boundaries that reduce these interruptions. One simple but effective boundary is to take control of notifications. Many people allow their devices to be in charge of when and how often they are interrupted. But most notifications do not require immediate action. By turning off non-essential alerts and leaving only those that truly matter, such as reminders for important calls or messages from close family, you free your mind from unnecessary interruptions. The difference this makes can be astonishing. Suddenly, you are no longer pulled away from your work or your conversations by meaningless signals, and your attention begins to feel more stable. Another key boundary is creating specific times to engage with technology rather than allowing it to dictate when you engage. Instead of constantly checking your phone or email, you can set intentional windows during the day to respond. For example, checking emails in the morning after lunch and before finishing the workday is often enough to stay on top of communication without letting it hijack your productivity. The same principle applies to social media. When you give it a specific place in your schedule, you are choosing when to connect rather than letting notifications lure you in repeatedly. This simple shift in control helps you protect your focus for the things that deserve your energy. Physical boundaries with technology also play an important role. Many of us sleep with our phones next to our beds, eat meals with devices in hand, and keep screens within reach at all times. This constant presence makes it harder to resist the urge to check even when there is no real reason. By keeping your phone out of reach during focused work, leaving it outside the bedroom at night, or designating device free time such as during meals, you create space for deeper presence and sharper concentration. These small physical shifts remind your brain that you are in control of when and how you use technology rather than allowing it to be an ever-present distraction. Boundaries with technology are also about building healthier relationships with digital platforms. Many social media apps and websites are designed to be addictive, with infinite scrolling, autoplay, and constant notifications. The more time you spend, the more valuable you become to the platform, but the less valuable that time becomes to you. When you recognize this, you can set limits that align with your values. That might mean deleting apps that do not serve your goals, using screen time tracking to keep your usage in check, or simply asking yourself before opening an app, why am I here and what do I want to get out of this? Such intentional use transforms technology from a distraction into a tool, used with purpose instead of habit. It is also important to understand the cost of not setting boundaries. Every time you allow your attention to be stolen by a notification, it takes time and effort to regain your focus. Research shows that it can take over 20 minutes to fully return to a task after being interrupted. Multiply this by dozens of small distractions throughout the day, and the cost is staggering. Without boundaries, you may feel busy all day but accomplish little of true value. You may even end your day exhausted, not because you worked deeply, but because your mind was constantly fragmented. Boundaries are not about limiting yourself. They are about protecting your energy for the work and the people that matter. What makes boundaries effective is consistency. It is not enough to turn off notifications once or leave your phone in another room occasionally. Focus requires building habits and systems that make boundaries part of your daily life. For some, this may mean using apps that block distracting websites during work hours. For others, it may mean setting clear rules, such as no phones after a certain time in the evening. The details may vary, but the principle remains the same. You take back control by deciding when, where, and how you will use your devices. Ultimately, boundaries with technology are about reclaiming freedom. When you decide what deserves your attention and what does not, you free yourself from living reactively. Instead of being a servant to constant notifications, you become intentional with your time. Technology remains a powerful tool, but it is used on your terms. That shift makes all the difference because focus is not only about what you pay attention to, it is about what you are willing to ignore. And when you master the ability to ignore distractions, you open the space to focus on what truly matters. A well-designed environment is one of the most underrated yet powerful factors that determine how focused we can remain in a world overflowing with distractions. People often assume that focus is only about mental discipline or willpower, but the truth is, our surroundings have a profound impact on our ability to concentrate. The spaces we live and work in either support our focus or undermine it. A cluttered desk, a noisy background, or an environment full of temptations can make even the most disciplined person struggle to stay on task. On the other hand, an environment intentionally designed to reduce friction and eliminate distractions makes focus feel natural and effortless. By shaping our surroundings, we shape our attention, and by shaping our attention, we shape the quality of our work and our lives. Consider how difficult it is to concentrate in a room full of chaos. Piles of papers, half-finished tasks lying around, and constant background noise make the brain feel overloaded before you even begin your work. In this kind of environment, your attention is constantly pulled in different directions, not because you lack the ability to focus, but because your environment is demanding more from your brain than it should. Clutter sends signals to your mind that there are many unfinished tasks waiting for you, which creates stress and reduces mental clarity. In contrast, a clean, organized, and intentional workspace signals to the brain that it is safe to focus on the task at hand. This doesn't mean perfection or sterile minimalism. It means removing unnecessary obstacles so that your energy is directed where it matters most. Noise is another environmental factor that silently sabotages focus. The human brain is wired to respond to sounds, even when we consciously try to ignore them. Conversations in the background, the hum of a television, or frequent interruptions break concentration and make it difficult to enter into a state of deep work. While some people claim they can multitask with noise around them, the quality of their focus is often compromised. By contrast, environments that minimize unnecessary noise allow the brain to settle into concentration more easily. For some, this might mean working in a quiet room, using noise-canceling headphones, or listening to calming background music that drowns out distractions. When the noise fades, mental clarity sharpens, and the mind becomes free to dive into deeper levels of thought. Lighting also plays a critical role in focus. Poor lighting creates strain and fatigue, while natural light or well-placed artificial lighting can energize and improve mood. An environment filled with light signals alertness and presence, while a dim or poorly lit space invites lethargy and disengagement. In the same way, the temperature and physical comfort of the space influence how long someone can remain focused. A chair that causes discomfort or a room that is too hot or too cold interrupts concentration, not because the task is difficult, but because the environment is fighting against you. When you make small adjustments, choosing comfortable seating, ensuring good lighting, and setting the room at a pleasant temperature, you remove barriers that drain energy and attention. Another important aspect of environment is the digital space we create. In today's world, our devices are an extension of our environment, and the way they are organized matters. A desktop cluttered with dozens of files, too many open tabs in a browser, or constant digital reminders mirrors the chaos of a messy physical space. Just like in the physical world, a cluttered digital environment creates mental overload. By keeping digital spaces clean and organized, closing unnecessary tabs, filing away documents, and using tools to block distractions, we extend the principles of focus into the virtual world where much of our work and attention now lives. What makes environment so powerful is that it works in the background without demanding effort. Once a supportive environment is created, it silently shapes behavior. A bowl of fruit on the table encourages healthier eating, while cookies in plain sight invite indulgence. Similarly, a workspace designed for concentration encourages focus without requiring constant self-control. By making distractions less accessible and focus easier to achieve, the environment acts as an ally rather than an obstacle. It is also worth noting that environments are not one size fits all. Each person has unique preferences and needs that help them concentrate. Some thrive in completely silent spaces, while others focus better with a low level of ambient noise. Some feel more energized by bright open spaces, while others prefer cozy, contained corners. The key is self-awareness, understanding what type of environment brings out your best concentration, and then designing your space to reflect that. When you intentionally choose environments that align with your focus style, you maximize your ability to stay engaged with your work. The environment also extends beyond physical and digital spaces to include the people around us. The presence of others can either sharpen or weaken focus. Being surrounded by people who respect your time and support your goals strengthens your ability to stay on task, while being in environments filled with interruptions or individuals who constantly demand your attention drains energy and derails concentration. Setting boundaries with people and choosing to spend time in spaces where your focus is protected becomes just as important as cleaning your desk or silencing your phone. Ultimately, our environment shapes our behavior in ways we often underestimate. When distractions are abundant and constantly visible, focus becomes a struggle of willpower, and willpower is a limited resource. But when distractions are minimized and focus is supported, the same tasks feel easier, smoother, and more engaging. Designing environments that work with us instead of against us is an intentional act that pays off daily. By aligning the physical, digital, and social spaces around us with our goals, we transform focus from a battle into a natural state of being. Single tasking outperforms multitasking because it allows us to bring the full weight of our attention, energy, and creativity to one thing at a time. For years, we've been told that multitasking is a sign of productivity, that doing more at once means we are achieving more. But in reality, the human brain is not built for true multitasking. What most people call multitasking is actually rapid task switching, moving back and forth between activities, never fully immersed in either. Each switch carries a cost, fragmenting focus, reducing efficiency, and lowering the quality of the work being done. The illusion of productivity hides the fact that we are stretching ourselves thin and training our minds to live in constant distraction. Single tasking, on the other hand, is about depth. It is about fully committing to one activity until it is complete or until a natural stopping point, and in doing so, unlocking higher levels of performance, creativity, and satisfaction. When you single task, you give your brain the gift of presence. Instead of splitting your attention between multiple demands, you channel it toward the one thing that deserves it most in that moment. This deep concentration creates what researchers often call a flow state, a condition where time seems to disappear and productivity feels effortless. In flow, you are not struggling to ignore distractions because your mind is so absorbed in the task that everything else fades into the background. Achieving this level of focus is nearly impossible when you are constantly jumping from one thing to another. Single tasking creates the conditions for flow by training the brain to remain steady and present rather than restless and scattered. The costs of multitasking are not only about lost efficiency, they also affect the quality of our thinking. Every time we shift from one task to another, the brain must disengage from one context and re-engage with the next. This constant switching leads to cognitive fatigue, making it harder to think deeply, solve problems, and generate new ideas. Important details are overlooked, mistakes increase, and decisions become more reactive than intentional. In contrast, when you devote full attention to a single task, your brain can dig deeper into the problem, connect ideas more effectively, and produce higher quality outcomes. Single tasking is not slower, it is smarter. It ensures that what you produce is not just completed, but crafted with care and clarity. The practice of single tasking also enhances memory and learning. Studies show that when people try to learn something while multitasking, retention rates drop significantly. Splitting attention means the brain does not encode information deeply enough to store it for the long term. But when we give our undivided attention, the brain processes information more thoroughly, making it easier to recall later. This has profound implications not only for work, but also for daily life. Conversations become more meaningful when we are fully present, lessons become more impactful when we listen without distraction, and experiences become richer when we immerse ourselves in them without trying to do something else at the same time. Another benefit of single tasking is the sense of fulfillment it brings. Multitasking often leaves us feeling exhausted yet unsatisfied because although we may have touched many things, we rarely finish them with excellence. The brain craves closure, and leaving multiple tasks half done creates a sense of lingering tension. Single tasking allows us to bring tasks to completion, which provides a sense of progress and accomplishment. This not only fuels motivation, but also reduces stress. Instead of juggling an endless list of half-finished responsibilities, you can move through tasks one at a time with clarity, finishing them fully and confidently. Of course, single tasking requires intentionality in a world that constantly demands our attention. Notifications, emails, and interruptions often lure us into divided focus, making it seem impossible to stay with one thing at a time. But the discipline of single tasking is built on creating small, consistent practices. This might look like blocking out time for deep work, setting clear priorities for the day, or eliminating distractions during important tasks. It is also about giving ourselves permission to slow down, to resist the urge to constantly check or switch, and to trust that depth will produce better results than speed. Over time, these practices train the brain to resist distraction more naturally and to find greater ease in focused work. Single tasking also has an emotional impact. When we are present with one task, whether it is a work project, a conversation with a loved one, or even a simple household chore, we bring more of ourselves into the moment. This presence builds stronger connections both with the work we are doing and with the people we interact with. Imagine the difference between listening to someone while scrolling through your phone and listening to them with full attention. The latter creates trust, respect, and deeper relationships. In the same way, giving full attention to our work reflects a form of respect for ourselves and the task at hand. It says, "This matters enough to deserve my best." It is important to recognize that the practice of single tasking does not mean you will never have multiple responsibilities. Life is full of competing demands, and sometimes shifting between them is necessary. But single tasking is about handling those responsibilities with intention rather than constantly dividing focus. It means prioritizing what is most important in each moment and giving it your undivided attention instead of trying to do everything at once and diluting your effectiveness in all of them. It is about depth over breadth, quality over quantity, and presence over distraction. By committing to single tasking, you not only become more productive, but also more grounded. You discover that focus is not about cramming more into each day, but about giving more of yourself to what truly matters. In doing so, you achieve better results with less stress, and you build a life marked not by constant business, but by meaningful accomplishment. Rituals that protect focus are one of the most powerful tools we can build into our lives because they serve as anchors in a world filled with noise and endless choices. Unlike habits, which are often unconscious, rituals are intentional practices we create with purpose. They are repeated actions that prepare our minds and bodies for a certain state. And in the case of focus, rituals act as signals that tell the brain it is time to concentrate. Just as athletes warm up before stepping into a game or musicians tune their instruments before a performance, we too can design rituals that condition us to step into deep, focused work. These rituals are not about rigidity or complexity. They are about creating rhythms that protect attention and make focus more natural and sustainable. One of the most powerful benefits of rituals is that they reduce the need for constant decision-making. Every day, we are faced with countless small choices: when to start working, what task to tackle first, how to handle distractions. Each decision drains mental energy, leaving us with less capacity to focus on meaningful work. Rituals eliminate much of this unnecessary strain by creating automatic structures. For example, beginning your workday with a short journaling session or a to-do list ritual gives your brain clarity and direction, sparing you from wasting energy on figuring out where to start. The ritual itself becomes a cue that transitions you into focus, saving your attention for the task itself. Rituals also provide stability, which is essential in environments filled with unpredictability. Distractions come in many forms: unexpected calls, urgent requests, or even shifting priorities. Without a structure, it is easy to drift from one thing to another, never really settling into deep work. But when you have rituals in place, they act like guardrails, keeping you aligned with your intention, even when external circumstances try to pull you away. Something as simple as setting aside the same time each morning for focused work creates a psychological boundary, signaling to yourself and to others that those hours are sacred. Over time, this consistency strengthens your ability to protect focus because the ritual itself becomes a form of accountability. The act of building rituals also taps into the brain's natural love for patterns and predictability. Our minds respond positively to cues that tell us what to expect. This is why rituals can be so powerful. They create a rhythm that the brain begins to associate with focus. For instance, lighting a candle, putting on specific music, or even making a cup of coffee before sitting down to work can become a signal to your mind that it is time to concentrate. These cues may seem small, but they build strong mental associations that reduce resistance and help you enter a state of focus more quickly. Rituals also create space for recovery, which is essential for sustaining focus in the long run. Many people try to push themselves to concentrate for hours on end, only to find their productivity and quality of work decline. Focus is like a muscle with use, but also requires rest. Rituals of rest, such as taking short breaks after a period of deep work, practicing breathing exercises, or stepping outside for fresh air, give the mind a chance to recharge. These intentional pauses not only restore energy, but also prepare you to return to your task with renewed clarity. Without rituals of rest, focus turns into burnout, but with them, it becomes sustainable and even enjoyable. Another dimension of rituals is that they extend beyond individual practices and can shape entire environments. For example, beginning team meetings with a moment of silence or a clear agenda can help everyone focus collectively, avoiding the scatter that comes from jumping straight into discussion. Families can create rituals of device-free dinners where presence and connection are protected from digital distraction. These shared rituals create cultural signals that focus and attention are valued, not just individually, but collectively. The more these rituals are repeated, the stronger the culture of focus becomes. Rituals also carry a symbolic weight that strengthens commitment. When you design a ritual with intention, it becomes more than just an action. It becomes a promise to yourself. The act of showing up for the ritual daily or consistently reinforces your identity as someone who values focus. Over time, this identity shift becomes more powerful than willpower. You no longer need to force yourself to concentrate because your rituals have already shaped the belief that focus is who you are and how you operate. This is why rituals are so deeply effective. They align behavior with identity, turning focus into a natural expression of self rather than a constant battle. It is important to remember that rituals don't have to be grand or elaborate. In fact, the most effective ones are often simple. Writing a single sentence in a journal to begin the day, clearing your desk before starting work, or ending your evening with a brief reflection can all serve as rituals that protect focus. What matters most is not the complexity of the ritual, but the consistency of practicing it with intention. Over time, these small actions compound, training your brain to associate them with clarity, attention, and presence. Ultimately, rituals that protect focus are about taking ownership of your time and energy. They are conscious practices that shield your attention from the chaos of distraction and create spaces where your mind can do its best work. By building rituals that prepare you to focus, sustain your concentration, and help you recover, you not only become more productive, but also cultivate a greater sense of meaning in the way you live and work. Focus becomes less about fighting distractions and more about returning to the rhythm you have built for yourself, a rhythm that protects what truly matters most. In a world that constantly competes for our attention, staying focused is no longer a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Each of the strategies we've explored, from finding clarity of purpose, to setting boundaries with technology, to shaping environments that support focus, to embracing single tasking, to building protective rituals, and finally, to practicing mindful awareness, gives us the tools to reclaim control of our attention. Focus is not about doing more, but about doing what truly matters with presence and intention. Distractions will never disappear, and the world will only get louder, but the discipline to focus allows us to create meaning in the middle of noise. When we choose focus, we choose depth over shallowness, quality over quantity, and purpose over chaos. And in doing so, we not only become more productive, we also build lives defined by clarity, fulfillment, and impact.